Listening to the wisdom and truth of children has been one of the biggest gifts of my 30 years in ministry so far. It is their sense of justice, their compassion, and their beautiful, difficult questions which sometimes stop me in my tracks, along with their inner knowing, if we just wait for them to tell us what they know. I think about Meredith Hill, who's 18 now and in her first year of college, asking her mother years ago when she was 5, "Mama, if God made the world, then who made God?" And before her surprised mother had a chance to even begin to frame a response to that theological twister, Meredith answered it for herself. God's mother made God, and her name is Hope. I know, right? A few years ago, another one of our kids who was having a rough go of it and being bullied pretty relentlessly in elementary school asked me, "Why are these kids being so mean to me?" And then almost as soon as he had asked the question, he said, "I know the answer. It's because they feel really sad inside and they don't want anyone to know. They don't like me because I am just myself. And if I am sad, I just cry." And a few weeks ago, one of our newer little ones, Henry, caught me at coffee hour mid-swallow of coffee and said, Elea, I have a question for you. How do you pray?" I said, "Well, I think it starts with getting still inside yourself, however you do that." "That's right," he said confidently. "That's how you start." And Toby, this morning, I think deep listening is when someone can hear their imagination. Artists listen to the ideas that are in their heads and make really, really cool things. Listening to the wisdom of our kids makes me want to just give up on my own opinions. I've realized lately that I'm actually kind of tired of my opinions. I'm tired of sharing them. I'm tired of talking about them. I'm tired of having them. I'm also tired of not having them and feeling that I should, usually on issues that are complicated and nuanced and subtle, and about which I don't actually know enough to have formed an opinion, much less a thoughtful, considered one. I think about how much time and energy I spend on my opinions, and I have the possibly deluded idea that I'm not even that opinionated of a person, except if you get me started on something I care deeply about, or you put me in an argument with my now conservative son, or you ask me about anything related to church or worship or basically any aspect of congregational life, and I find I do have opinions. I looked up the word in the dictionary to make sure that it's opinions that I am tired of. According to Merriam-Webster, an opinion is a view, judgment, or appraisal formed in the mind about a particular matter. Opinions are beliefs stronger than impressions or preferences and less strong than positive knowledge. In other words, an opinion falls short of knowing something for sure, though I think this last point can get lost on a lot of us a lot of the time. By their very nature, opinions are not facts or certainties, no matter how much we like to act as if they are. Instead of having opinions, I want to try to listen harder. I want to try being of the opinion that I don't have an opinion as much as possible and just see what happens. I want to listen more and opine less. And this morning, I am inviting you to give up your opinions too, which may be the most radical thing I have ever said to you in 23 years. I know our opinions are extremely important to a lot of us. A lot of us may even believe that our opinions are who we are, or that to give them up means that we don't care, that giving up our opinion means giving up on people or issues that matter. But we can care deeply about things and people without having opinions about them. For example, without having opinions about you or knowing yours, I care deeply about how you feel and what makes you joyful or angry or heartbroken. I care deeply about your stories and your dreams, your hopes and shames, and the truths that you have learned through experience. I care deeply about the things you don't even have words for, much less opinions about. The things which are so vulnerable and tender in you, they hurt if you press on them. But opinions can get in the way of all of that. Think about the stories that we have not been told because we were trading opinions. Think about the shy feelings that never got shared. The times we didn't hear something important because it was quiet, and we were busy forming our opinions in our minds so we would have something to say. I don't think opinions have ever changed anyone's mind or heart in the history of humanity, which is not a statement of fact. Therefore, it is my opinion, so you can disregard it immediately. But I wonder why we don't listen. Maybe because if we listen and don't respond, or defend, or argue, or object, we are afraid our silence might be mistaken for agreement with something that we believe is wrong, or immoral, or maybe we don't listen because we think we already know. Imagine how different our country's history would be if those first Europeans fleeing religious persecution got to this new to them land and were able to find the tiniest bit of room in their convictions to listen to the people who already lived here. If their certainty that God had given them the right to own and occupy this land hadn't overridden everything else. Imagine how different our country would be if our elected leaders listened to each other and worked to find common ground, to find and hold on to the threads tying them together in a shared responsibility for the people they govern, instead of the House Speaker being toppled by members of his own party for being willing to listen just a little bit, to make compromises to keep the government from shutting down and hurting millions of people. My son, Caleb, is making me practice this kind of listening over and over again. I disagree with his opinions vehemently and strenuously, and he does not care about my opinions. And I am learning so slowly, such a slow learner here, that if I listen to him, instead of trying to talk him out of his beliefs, if I can breathe through my own reactions, then I can find the thread that ties us together. I can find some common ground. I can find a place where we can meet each other. Some of you might remember a story I told a few years ago about Caleb. He and I were having a political argument while going through the McDonald's drive-thru in Ayer to get him lunch, though I'm sure he would want me to tell you that he doesn't eat McDonald's anymore because he is super concerned with good nutrition now. But he was still eating it when we had this argument, not the first and probably not the last, about our then president. And I was definitely escalating things as I told him all the reasons why his opinion was dead wrong and my opinion was dead right. It was deeply upsetting. And the truth is, it still is sometimes, in large part because I feel that he is rejecting the values we instilled in him here. The values that you instilled in him through your compassion and your acceptance of him, and how kindly you listened to his ideas, and how you played those cardboard arcade games he made and brought in on Sundays when he was going through that phase, and how you let him eat every single thing at coffee hour when that was the only part of church he liked. And part of my upset is that he doesn't recognize or appreciate any of this when he criticizes me for raising him in what he calls a socialist cult. So I know. Welcome. So anyway, as we started to exit the McDonald's parking lot, he says, "Mom, wait a minute. What's that woman over there doing, do you think?" He points to a woman who's walking slowly around the parking lot, her head down, scanning the ground. She looked like she was having a hard time of it, though I hadn't even noticed her because I was so engaged in the fight. "I think she's looking for change," I say. Caleb says nothing. He jumps out of the car. He runs over to the woman. He pulls out his wallet and he hands her a $10 bill, which I didn't even know he had, or I would have had him pay for his own lunch. I watched him bend down to speak to her. As most of you know, Caleb is extremely, extremely tall. I watched how he spoke to her gently and smiled to her. And when he got back in the car, I said, "That was very kind." And he said in a joking, not joking way, "I thought you were just telling me I've lost all my compassion." And that is when I realized that my child needs me to listen to the whole of who he is, to remind him I believe in his heart and in the compassion embedded so deeply within him. My child needs me to love him exactly as he is, even as I wish that his opinions would mellow just a little bit. But he is not his opinions. He's so much more. And I wish I could tell you that it was easy to keep finding that common ground, to keep looking for that place of meeting. It is not easy. But I know it matters. Because when we listen, we can hear so much. We can hear the kind hearts and wisdom of our children. We can hear the wisdom of our spiritual ancestors echoing back from through the centuries. The wisdom of the people who lived on this land before that, the wisdom of the land itself. When we listen, we hear the stories of bright and broken hearts. When we listen, we hear the songs the universe is singing to us.